my channel. Today I would like to bring to you 5 tips for Odissi dance for those who are starting out to learn Odissi or have been practicing Odissi and are planning for professional performances or even planning to teach in future. These are certain tips and tricks, I would not say tricks, but really tips that will definitely be of very good value to you. Alright, so first tip is usually a lot of times I get the question and I often see a lot of people making a very minor mistake of not maintaining the right gap between their 2 feet when you're sitting in chauka. So how do you do that? Let me quickly step back and show that to you. Okay, so you can see both my feet, they are together. This is called samapada. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a V with my feet. All I'm going to do is my feet are conjoined. Now they're going to open to form a little V. Okay, but remember, it should not be a very narrow V. I would not say it would be completely 180 degree, but let's say it is at least about a 135 degree to a little bit more than that. Okay, then after that all I'm going to do is lift my body up on my toes and then turn my heels backward, push them outward so that both my feet are now parallel to one another. Your feet should be at this point almost about a shoulder width apart. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly turn my right foot to the right, left foot to the left, and I'm going to sit. So this is how you get to the chauka foot position. Now whenever you are dancing, for those who are just starting out, it is important that you constantly keep measuring yourself such that you don't make chaukas which are very wide or which are very narrow, because they're technically incorrect and also they do not look aesthetically good. So how do you make that happen? One of the easiest ways is to measure by placing both your hands pretty much like this, fist and the thumb sticking out. This is the ideal gap between the 2 heels of your 2 feet. So what do I mean by that? I'm again going to do the same thing. V, step 1, parallel feet, step 2, to the right, to the left, step 3. Now the gap that you see between my 2 heels, that should be equal to my fist and my thumb sticking out both together. Okay? Also, one quick thing to remember each time that you're practicing the various different steps of chauka, at the end of it, whenever you complete ta, a, e, thi, na, ka, thi, ni, whenever you complete 1 or 2 sections, how many server sections that you're using to do for each of the chauka step, make sure at the end of it, you don't just spring back your body. Okay? Make sure that you drop your hands, bring them to your hips, go down, measure the distance between your 2 feet to confirm that you have been able to maintain your chauka and then come back up. This will help you go a really, really long way. So that is tip number 1. Tip number 2, I would like to, okay, let me come a little closer, okay? So tip number 2 that I would like to tell you about is how do you do your torso movement, right? Now torso movement is something which is unique to Odissi, but also we often struggle with maintaining a very strong center, making sure that our hips don't move, making sure that our knees don't move, but it's really the upper body, that is your midriff and your chest area, right? So how do I do that? What is the easiest exercise? First of all, when I say you have to do a torso to the right, I basically would intend that I have to bend on my right side, okay? When I have to bend on my left side, I'll say left torso. Okay, so this is my left side, this is my right side. Right torso, left torso. How am I making this happen? Okay, so the right torso, imagine as if somebody is pushing you, wherein your legs are kind of tied or fixed in a place. So your legs, your hips can't move, but somebody is kind of pushing you as if along the length of your midriff. That is all the way from your shoulder and then your chest area and up until your hip joint. Somebody is trying to push you, so you're basically going to dislocate yourself from where you were, pushing yourself a bit to the left, such that you form a small inner curve on the right side, and your left side will be slightly extended. You see there is an extension here, but this is bent. It's compressed, it's expanded. Similarly, compressed, expanded, contracted, stretched, compressed, expanded, compressed, expanded. So this is how you're supposed to keep doing it, making sure that your hips don't move, that your head doesn't move. Easiest way to do is just do it in front of the mirror so that you know that your hips are not moving. Another way, if you do not have a full length mirror, or if you have a full length mirror but you do not have space in front of it in dance, what you could do is, whenever you're practicing the torso exercise, touch your hips with your hand. What happens is if your hips are moving, if your hands are just on your waist and your hips are moving, oftentimes you won't even realize. If your hands are on your hips, it is a very straightforward indication. Your hands would feel the movement and you would know to tell yourself that, hey, that's wrong, stop, okay? Additionally, once you have been able to achieve the side-to-side torso movement, as I said, don't move your head, don't move your hips, don't move your knee. Everything else stays fixed. It's literally controlled by the core and by the chest. That's all. Once you have been able to master the side-to-side, we'll try to do the circle. How does that work? Chest out, shoulder out, breathe in so that you feel a little broad, upper body structure feels a little broad, and you almost are, you feel that your body is going towards the front, right? Forward. So that's front, then left torso, then back. At this point, all you're doing is you're crunching in your chest and your core. And also your shoulder consequently crunches in, okay? And then you would do on the right and come back to the front. Then again, front, right, back, left. Front, left, back, right. Front, right, back, left. This is very easy. All it takes is some practice and some conscious effort to not move certain parts of the body, okay? Moving on to a tip that is going to be our tip number 3 for today. Okay, so for Odissi, we often struggle with maintaining the chokka. Now, when I say by maintaining the chokka, there are many components to it. Tip 1 covered the gap. Tip 3 is going to cover sitting at a certain height. How do we do that? So when I say chokka, for those who are starting to learn or for those who are planning to learn, this might be a very, very new concept still for you, but it'll be fairly easy for you to understand. Okay, so I go into 1, 2, 3, 4, sit in chokka, hands out, hands chokka hands. And now in this position, I usually say it's 70% of your complete height. So if my total height is this, I sit anywhere between 60 to 70%. Okay, now how did I get there? I used to basically measure myself against the wall, put a tick mark up to where I need to sit. I would put my head against it. And then either my mom or my dance teacher would put their head on top of my head. And I would sit in this position, starting with 30 seconds, progressively into 40 seconds, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, so on and so forth. Okay? So that is a great exercise, by the way, to learn to maintain your certain height. Once you have practiced sitting in that position for a prolonged period of time, and challenge yourself. If you're feeling comfortable at 30, don't just stop 30 seconds. Don't just stop at 30 seconds. Tell yourself, can I push myself to 45 seconds? Can I push myself to 1 minute? And so on and so forth, day by day pretty much. You can see yourself gaining more stamina and improving the strength on your thigh muscles and your calf muscles, because essentially those are your pillar whenever you're sitting in a chokka. Make sure that you practice it every day rather than practicing for a prolonged period of time just once a week, because that does not have as good and as effective an impact as it would if you were to invest little by little time on a daily basis. Because just the way our cells regenerate almost every day, your body muscles also get used to certain structure, certain form, certain centering day by day. Okay, now coming to tip number 4. This is a little bit fun. This is the glamorous part of Odissi. So all Indian classical dance forms, they have exquisite, beautiful costumes, right? And that is a really, really large part of the personality of the dance. So it is important that we talk about it. Traditionally, Odissi dance costume, it's usually first of all made up of silk, traditionally, okay? It'll usually have 2 colors. One would be the base color and the other color would be the border color, the color of the border and the color of the dhoti pleats that comes in the center. They're usually contrasting colors. So it would be a green and red, or it could be a white and blue, or it could be a maroon and yellow. So usually they're very stark contrast, so that for someone who's watching you in the audience and very far from you, even they can see, the very beautiful, intricate design that goes into the costume. However, the costume has definitely evolved over many years since, as I said, multiple times in the past, in some of my videos, if you would have watched, that Odissi was revived and resurrected sometime back in 1950s and 1960s. So since then till now, there have been a lot of customizations that has happened in the costume. So there are certain school of Odissi, wherein you would see that they might not necessarily have the border with temple design on it. They might just have a simple, straightforward, linear border. There are certain others who would probably make a lot of mix and match. What do I mean by that? They could have a blouse, they could have a dhoti, and the dupatta could be completely not even attached to the outfit and completely different color altogether, just to bring a very different and new dimension to the outfit. A lot of different dancers, they don't essentially always wear silver jewelry. They might even wear oxidized jewelry. So that's slightly blackish. So the jewelry that I'm wearing right now, it has got a stark white silver color, right? So this is more traditional. Sometimes a lot of dancers, they like to enhance the beauty by utilizing oxidized jewelry. There is really, I would not say there is anything wrong or right about using certain kinds, but there are certain basic rules to keep in mind. First of all, the kind of design. So the belt, it has to essentially look like this. It starts with a small coin-like structure. Coin-like structure, and then in the second row there is a button-like structure that you can see. And then in the third row there is a water droplet, inverted water droplet kind of a structure. So this is how the design has to be. The color might vary, the color of the the rope that you see here, that might vary. Some people, they make each of these rows slightly thinner, thereby making the belt slightly sleeker. That's fine too. But as I said, technically these three are the important components, and each of them do signify something. That'll be a story for a different day. But yeah, so that's important. Similarly, what you see here I'm wearing, a lot of people do not essentially wear this. They might wear a little, this is a choker. Other people might wear a necklace, and that's absolutely fine. That is absolutely, there is nothing wrong or nothing, technically incorrect about it. So that is absolutely fine again. As long as we are sticking to the color palette of silver and, oxidized color in that particular, color palette. Do we do Odissi in golden jewelry? Usually no. That is not a usual norm. And if you're doing a proper Odissi classical performance in a concert, in a conference, that is not advisable, because that is not a characteristic of Odissi. As I said, the costume, the jewelry, they play a really, really important role, and they have history associated with them. So that is the reason why it is important that we do not wear golden jewelry. But if you do for a certain specific reason, it is important to explain the reason behind it. You could be doing a certain choreography which has Odissi as the base dance style, but for whatever reason you might be using a different color of jewelry or a different set of costume, which you need to definitely make sure that you put out a note to the audience and explain the reason behind doing so. Okay? My fifth tip, which is the last tip for today, is how you can play around with Odissi costume. Now what I'm wearing today is not at all a traditional Odissi costume. Okay? But is it acceptable? Yes. The reason being, it has the three important components of an Odissi costume. I have to have a blouse, which is what I'm wearing. I have to have a dhoti. I cannot be wearing a ghagra and call it an Odissi costume. It has to be a dhoti. And then I also have to have this dupatta kind of thing, which comes and covers your chest, and then it adds the femininity to the structure of the costume. So that also I have. Now how I wear it, what combination I do, as I said, it's important to make sure that the colors are going well, even if they're contrasting. So that's a decision that you can make, but keeping in mind that you are sticking to certain ground rules of how the outfit needs to look like. So one important thing to keep in mind each time that you're thinking of customizing your outfit and wearing it for a performance, make sure that you know the ground rules. Make sure that you have the very basic fundamental jewelry pieces intact without kind of altering them too much. And lastly, also you have to make sure it's comfortable. Whenever you're sitting in your chauka, or whenever you're sitting in your kumbhapad on the floor, okay, or whenever you need to lunge, or this is something that you're doing with your foot, you need to make sure that your dhoti, your blouse, your dupatta, everything allows that. Similarly, when I'm lifting my arm up, is it comfortable for me? Is it restricting me? Can I only lift it up to this much, and if I need to bend more, it is restricting me along the shoulder or the armpit line? Then there is a problem. Okay, so we should make sure that whatever you're wearing, it is not restrictive, because at the end of the day, your dance is your hero, or your heroine, or your queen, or your king, as you like to call it. So make sure that whatever you're wearing, ground rules, important, comfort, important, and also, if at all you're taking certain liberty, creative liberty, make sure that you call it out. That's it for today. We'll talk more about some of the headgear related stuff and some other techniques relating to the dance in the next episode. Thank you.